Good morning, everybody. This is your training for the ACT. We're going to walk through the demographics portion, which happens on Wednesday, April 12th during extended Bulldog time, and also going to go through some ACT training for the 19th. Students will receive a ticket before Bulldog time on April 12th that will tell them what classroom they will report to complete their ACT demographics. This is also the same classroom that they will report to on the 18th for either ACT Academy or ACT Prep, and then also their same testing location for April 19th. So we've tried to kind of streamline that process a little bit and give some consistency to the students as they get ready to take their ACT test. For the demographics on the 12th, please come to the office that morning to get your materials. You'll need to get the answer documents and also the booklets that the students will be filling out as well. When students come in that day, please seat them alphabetically. You can see there's a seating chart here. So the door should be where number 1 starts, and that would be the beginning of the alphabet to the end of the alphabet. After students are seated, please pass out the answer documents. The students should be in alphabetical order following the above chart. Answer documents have a label on the back page, lower right corner of the answer document, and this has the student's information on it, so you know which document belongs to which student. Please give every student the booklet taking the ACT test. Read verbal instructions verbatim beginning on page 16 of the administration manual. And this will take you through everything that students do for that demographics portion. So you can see here that there's different sections that they'll be completing for that. When you're done with that, please collect the answer documents from each student individually, making sure that they are picked up in alphabetical order. Remind students before they leave that day that they will need to bring an ID to the test when they take that ACT test next week. They will also need to leave their cell phones in their car or locker at home that day, and they'll need to make sure they have pencils and erasers and a school-approved calculator on that ACT test day on the 19th. This demographics portion will take the majority of time that day, so students will be released at 2:20 as normal on that day. And please bring all of the answer documents back down to the office conference room to either turn into Mrs. Hartman or Mrs. Fields after that day. So our next day, April 19th, we will have all of the supplies in the office conference room at 7 o'clock that morning. Make sure that you have at least 2 reliable timepieces, a clock and stopwatch. A cell phone cannot be used to keep time. You'll need your test books, answer documents, forms for the test proctor to complete and return, your test roster, the test booklet count form, a seating diagram, and your time verification sheet. Please count your books before leaving the office area. If there's any type of discrepancies or anything like that, please make sure that we know. Throughout all times of testing, all test materials must be secure. Either lock them in your room without students present or carry them with you. Remember, your first hour students will be coming to your room for attendance, and then the students will be released by intercom to come to your room. Students will be seated in the same seats that they were when they completed the demographics. Seat students in alphabetical order according to the roster that you receive. Please check your student's ID, or if you recognize the student, then you can admit them for testing. Please check ID before handing out test booklets. You can check ID as you are passing back the answer folders. During Test 1, you will complete an ACT state and district testing roster in which you will mark the student present by indicating you saw a photo ID, which you will mark P on the roster, received a school letter, mark L on the roster, or recognize the student after having been in your class or sport or club by marking R on your roster along with your initials. Books will be handed out numerically in the order that a student is seated. If a student is absent from the testing room, please do not leave a test for that student. Instead, skip the desk and give the next test booklet to the next present student. The test books you have left over will be the last numbers you have been given. You may not have any test booklets over if all of your students are present. The verbal instructions begin on page 42. Students will be taking the writing portion of the test. Please spot check verbal directions on page 45. Students are to copy the testing certification on the front of the test booklet. On page 45, they are to copy the 6-digit number from test booklet to answer document. Document time for each test on the ACT state and district testing time verification form. Be sure to complete the number of examees. Please do not use a cell phone for one of the timepieces. Spot check, remember to make the announcement of 5 minutes remaining on the test and also to document that time. There is a change on the seating diagram for this year. Please look that over before giving your testing. The change is that during tests 2, 3, and 4, you will need to take note of where students left off of the prior test. This is in order to make sure the student is not going back in and filling in ovals from the prior test. Proctors must track unfinished ovals at the end of each multiple choice test. This will be charted on the seating diagram. During tests 2, 3, and 4, document what ovals are completed. If they complete ovals from a prior test section during the next test session, they are exhibiting prohibited behaviors and they will need to be dismissed from testing. If this is the case, please contact Mrs. Hartman or Mrs. Fields as soon as possible. Please do not say anything to the student. Please complete the ACT test booklet count form. Be sure to sign and then initial at the bottom. If there is any type of irregularity in the given test, please complete page 71 of the administration manual. Some things to look over before we proctor the test on the 19th. Please review page 8 and look over attentiveness and confidentiality. As an ACT proctor, ACT does not allow reading or grading papers or anything like that. You need to be up and walking around and monitoring the test. Any bulletin boards that have any content area, reading, English, math, or science, need to be either covered up or they need to be taken down prior to testing. Students need to also be able to watch the time on clock. So if your clock is in the classroom right now and it's in the back, but students look to the front, please make sure that that's moved before students test. Also look over page 8 to the room supervisor responsibilities before April 19th. Items that are absolutely prohibited in the test room, any type of textbooks, scratch paper, reading material, notes, or of any kind, tobacco, of course, and any food or beverages, including water. Even just a water bottle can become a distraction to a student. You will read a complete list of prohibited behaviors as part of the verbal instructions during your testing. Also, please review pages 29 to 33 to be familiar with any prohibited behaviors, as you can see here. So students will be dismissed to the testing rooms about 7:45, to which proctors should be checking in students, making sure they recognize them or checking their IDs as they pass out the answer documents. Verbal directions for the ACT should begin at 8 a.m. And the time you see here on the checklist is as if we started right at 8 a.m. on that day. During the break time, approximately 10 to 10:15, students can eat a snack in the hallway or commons and they can use the restroom. Please remind students before that time to be quiet in the hallways as others are testing. And we will have cookies out in the commons if students want to come grab a quick snack. When the ACT test is finished, please collect the answer document from every student. Collect the writing test booklet from every student before you dismiss students to lunch. Check test materials in with Mrs. Hartman or Mrs. Fields in the office conference room before going to lunch. Students may stop testing one at a time and go to the bathroom or nurse on an emergency basis. However, they do not get the time back, and you will need to note it on an irregularity report. If a student needs to be dismissed from testing, please contact administration or Mrs. Fields before saying anything to the student. And before going to lunch, please make sure all test materials are back to the conference room to be checked in due to test security. If there are any more questions about the ACT demographics on the 12th or the 19th, please contact Mrs. Hartman or Mrs. Fields with any of your questions. Thank you.